School Transportation Nation. We want to welcome you back. It's school's in session. We're back in action, right, Ryan? I think it's all the excitement, the fun, the challenges, the headaches. It's back in full swing.
Plenty of challenges and headaches, judging by the folks I've spoken with and some of the news headlines. Others, though, swimming with the current, doing pretty well. So, we'll get into it in a minute here.
Excellent. Well, we got lots of partners and sponsors of this podcast that can help you solve those challenges that you roll into the new school year. TransFinder, and they are the leader in school bus routing software. And our friends at IC Bus, the next generation can change everything. Ryan's going to be talking a little bit later with the executive team at Minnesota school bus contractor Palmer Bus. We have Jenna Fromm, the CEO. We have Shane Johnson, the Chief Operating Officer. And we have Chris Champlin, the CFO. And they are also the NSTA Contractor of the Year. And not only that, they won STN Top Transportation Teams Award that TransFinder put together. So that's a big accolade. They've had a lot of awards this summer, huh, Ryan?
Yeah, absolutely. And they're celebrating their 50th anniversary in business. So have a great conversation coming up with that trio. And Jenna's going to give some great history of the company that her late father, Floyd Palmer, started in 1974 with 8 buses and now 28 locations. Great story there.
Awesome. Well, before we dive into the headlines, we have a quick message. Today's tech tip is brought to you by IC Bus. The next generation can change everything. Looking for ways to improve your on-time performance and reduce operating costs? All IC Bus CE Series school buses come standard with factory-installed telematics devices, including a 5-year connectivity subscription. Customers gain access to on-command connection, an industry-leading remote diagnostic solution, providing data that is visible and easy to understand and actionable. With OCC, your district will have visibility to vehicle health and performance data at your fingertips, including EV-specific information like state of charge and estimated range. Learn more about standard capabilities of their connected vehicles at icbus.com. That's icbus.com. All right, we're back, Ryan. Okay, let's dive into it. Back to school. Everybody's excited. I know my kids are back. Your kids are back. The buses are rolling, but buses rolling means challenges, headaches, driver shortages. There's always kind of those hiccups the first couple of weeks. Some people have been in session. They've already been through it. Other people they're in the thick of it. What are we hearing out there?
A lot of driver shortage issues. Last year around this time, Jefferson County Public Schools in Louisville, Kentucky really took it on the chin. Were dragged through over the proverbial coals, as I write in my upcoming September column in the magazine. Made national news for some AI-enabled routing software that was implemented disastrously. They've tried to rectify some things, still having some issues there, though, with some driver shortages. They cut a bunch of routes to non-essential, what they deemed non-essential general ed or magnet school transportation, trying to bring some of that back. But like I said, still having issues. In fact, on our social media, we posted to a YouTube rap video that a handful of students recorded called "Where's My Bus At?" So still having some issues with service there. I know that the Jefferson County there in Kentucky is trying to bring some of the service back with a what they called quote unquote homegrown routing solution. Other school districts, budget shortfalls. I know, been talking to our friends down at Cypress Fairbanks ISD in Texas in the Houston area for months now. They've been warning me about the impending doom of budget cuts there. Really coming to fruition this past week, made some big headlines. I don't know if you saw it, Tony. There was a couple videos that were posted on X of reporters driving by miles long lines going into this elementary school, or maybe it was a middle school. $140 million shortfall that Sci-Fair has been dealing with. So I know our good friend, Dr. Kane Smith, who's the director of transportation there, former STN Director of the Year award winner. He told me, I was talking to him quite a bit at STN EXPO East in Indianapolis in June, and school had just gotten out. And he said, "Hey, I'm coming over to visit here because I'm not going to be able to go to Reno to STN EXPO West because we have this budget shortfall." I've been talking to some other folks. Bobby Williams, their assistant director of fleet services, who is one of the head honchos with our national school bus inspection training program that we do at both expos. He was talking about it and the workload that they were under. So they're really, really slammed right now. We've talked a little bit about this. I think Hawaii is having some really big issues. They began classes back at the beginning of the month on August 5th, and they have a severe driver shortage there on the islands. So a lot of folks are really dealing with it. I know that we saw some surveys come out by several organizations talking about the school bus driver shortage, and this was after over the past year, some surveys within the industry indicated that things were improving somewhat. We're out of COVID. I mean, it's the shutdowns certainly are done. It's still a thing. As I write about, new variants coming out here left and right, and I know that there's the latest round of vaccines, but I think that we're settling in from a standpoint of COVID to where what we thought was going to happen originally was this was just another sickness that that is affecting folks. I think that it's going to be with us for a while, but a lot of the jobs came back, all the schools came back in session. So, but we definitely are seeing a lot of headlines that are referring to the driver shortage. And in fact, Slate Magazine reached out to us recently to talk a little bit about the state of school busing and the driver shortage as well. So they're certainly from a national perspective still in the news. But some other folks, as I talk a little bit later to Palmer Bus, they are looking pretty good in terms of their driver shortage. I think that there are several cases out there of folks we've talked to recently that said they aren't running a shortage at all, and in fact, they have more than enough drivers, substitute drivers. So really a case-by-case basis, depending on how the school district is made up, their local community, communications with the community, certainly culture, pay definitely is, one of the main aspects of this. But as we talked to Palmer Bus in a little bit, they have some of their locations up and running. A lot of school in Minnesota doesn't start till after Labor Day, but several of their 28 locations are up and running. And so far as we'll talk with the team there in a little bit, things are looking pretty good for them. Certainly better than 5 years ago, is what Shane Johnson will tell us here in a bit. So certainly there's always hiccups at school startup, and we're certainly seeing some of those again rear their ugly head. One of the things that jumps out to me that's a little bit more concerning is some of the safety aspects. Several students left on buses. There's been a couple of kids hit by their school buses. So certainly, you have to think when you're looking at that driver shortage and we have new bodies behind the wheel, it takes a lot to train a school bus driver, and it takes a lot of on-the-job knowledge and skill to really be an effective driver. So hoping people are showing the care that they need to out there on the road.
Yeah, I know. As we kind of tucked away the September issue and sent it to press today, that writing the articles, looking through the magazine, I dove into really the danger zone and really looking deeper at that, and really that back to school snapshot of what are we facing as an industry. And I know, looking at our wire reports on stnonline.com, there are already stories about students being hit by their school bus, or illegal passes, or just incidents occurring in the market. And as school comes back, this stuff kind of rears its head. And, AAA Auto Club basically sent out a notice to all their members: be wary around schools, around school buses. You have to be more vigilant. And, very interestingly, Ryan, they cited that most of the incidents that are occurring are in the afternoon runs between 3 to 7 p.m. So I guess people are just trying to get home. And this is when it occurs, because you would think school's kind of out of session. I know my kids get out around like 2:15, 3 o'clock. So that jives pretty closely with what we're seeing with some of the national data from NASDIPS and some of the illegal passing surveys that they've done in terms of what we've seen. And I know that data was released, and we saw about a 6% uptick from the previous year. And we're talking, they're extrapolating it, millions of passes, but 6%, it's a big number.
Exactly. And you got to remember too, that's a voluntary survey. And it's across 35 states. But, when you're looking at 96,000 or so school bus drivers participating, that's what, a quarter of the school bus drivers out there?
Sounds about right. Yeah, 25%.
So, that's where NASDIPS has been saying, and they extrapolate and they look, across all school bus drivers across all states, multiply it out by, an average 180-day school year. A lot of school districts, a lot of states have gone to hours now, so not necessarily 180 days, but they try to paint the picture, right? And they are trying to illustrate the issue of illegal passing, and certainly it is a big issue. You just look at the sheer number, and it's amazing more kids aren't hurt or killed. So I think it goes back again. We talk about this in other articles in the September issue that's coming out in a couple of weeks. We have a big article on the danger zone and student detection, where it always comes back to training. There's a lot of technology now on the market, but that technology and that training need to coalesce. The technology is a tool to supplement the training. We can never substitute the training. And if anything, we have to double down, triple down on that training. So, technology is really a tool. It's to help make things more efficient, help to provide an extra set of eyes and ears on the road to help that driver. We talk to drivers in the upcoming issue about what they want to see when it comes to safety improvements and technology and training. So certainly newsworthy, timely for this time of year, talking about this stuff. And as we know, certainly the rest of society is fine-tuned, as a fine-tuned focus on back to school right now. If you have kids, that's what's the forefront of your mind, getting those kids to school on time, getting them back in the swing of things, getting yourself as a parent back into the swing of things. But we remember that this industry, this is what they live and breathe year round, daily. So certainly though, everything comes to fruition at the same time. Everyone's, all the school zones are packed again. It just lends itself to potential issues happening. So again, the sheer fact that we do have so few fatalities and relatively few injuries, again, that's a testament to that training. That's really the hallmark of this industry.
Yeah, other headlines, Ryan. We saw a friend of ours, GP Singh, over at Byte Curve, which is a software company. They're doing kind of an overlay for routing. They work with a lot of the routing companies. They were acquired by a company we were unfamiliar with called Transit Technologies. And when we dug a little deeper, we saw that Transit Technologies definitely has a lot to do in transit, right? They own a product called EcoLane, which is in the transit software business, doing routing and planning, as well as they own another company called Faster Asset Solutions, which is more of a maintenance software. So definitely some applicable value there that they're probably going to bring to the pupil transportation market. So we'll keep a close eye on that as they maybe develop products for our industry. So should be interesting to see more competition and more innovation, but looks like a pretty sizable company from what I can tell on their website.
Yeah, very, very large company, and ADA mobility is a big one for them. So, from a standpoint here, we have TSD coming up here in a little bit. So, it will really be interesting to see how they embrace Byte Curve and what they do with it. Byte Curve was really one of the first products on the market, and really the only product from a school transportation standpoint that works across, you mentioned, like all the different routing software as well as the telematics. There are some other products, like Zoom has a proprietary product that's very similar, does very similar things to what Byte Curve does from an efficiency standpoint in ensuring on-time arrival and costing models and whatnot. But that Zoom product is for Zoom. That's for those contracts. And I think that there's probably some interest there in expanding that. But really, when it comes to the school transportation industry as a whole, Byte Curve really has filled that need, regardless of what technology you're using. So certainly a very large company. Congratulations to GP. I was kidding with him on text the other day about the sale of the company, but he's going to be around. I understand for several years. I know this is his baby. Put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this thing to grow it to where it is right now. And in fact, I was talking to him at STN EXPO West in Reno at the trade show, and he was telling me, "Hey, Ryan, I'm finally at the point where I'm feeling that I don't have to do everything." And certainly GP, if you look at his resume, I mean, he's done everything that almost you can do in this industry. He's worked in maintenance. He's worked in finance. He's worked in HR. He's sales. He's done everything. And so he really, when it comes to understanding how this industry works, he is one of the guys at the top of the pyramid. But he was telling me, hey, he finally got to the point where he was being able to staff up. He was pointing to some more funding, and it all makes sense now. You have a huge company like Transit Technologies come in and acquire you. But from what we understand, GP will continue to be working with Byte Curve for the foreseeable future, and looking forward to seeing him continue to come out to STN Expos and TSD, and but certainly a good job by him and his team, and I think he also is going to get some well-deserved rest and not feel like he has to be everywhere at all times and doing everything. So congratulations to him.
And then, Ryan, I saw there were some updates for NCST, the National Congress for School Transportation, which has been on hiatus for quite a long time. So it's finally coming up, and then there's been a bit of a leadership shift, huh?
Yeah, so Patrick McManaman, who is one of he's the most recent past president for NASDIPS in that role. Basically, that person becomes the steering committee chairman for NCST. NASDIPS administers NCST, so a lot of its people staff the steering committee, especially. Other people certainly within the industry are involved, and then with the writing committees, of course. But Patrick was announced last week that for citing personal and professional reasons, he would be stepping down, and has stepped down from the NCST chair position. I understand this has actually been something that, while it was just announced, it actually had been in the works for several weeks. So with that move, Patrick still is the essentially the state director of transportation at for Vermont. He works with the Department of Motor Vehicles there on their education unit, so overseeing the licensing of school buses. But stepping in his place as NCST chair is our good friend Mike LaRocco, another NASDIP's past president, a NASBIN, as the group likes to call themselves, all those past presidents. But he is, of course, the state director of transportation at the Indiana Department of Education, and all around good guy. So he's agreed to step in and steer that committee as they move forward. Certainly, we're at a very busy time. We had tons of writing committees, Tony, out in Reno, meeting, talking about the different elements that they have to work on. So July 1st was actually when proposals for changes were due to these writing committees. So there was a lot of work being done there in Reno as they were starting to kind of organize all that stuff, gives people some face-to-face time. And then writing committee draft proposals on what those changes are going to be, what's being proposed to be put forward to all the state delegates out in Des Moines next May. That's due by October 1st, so just a little over a month away. And then those draft proposals must be turned back into the editing and technical assistant committees by November 1st, published online by December 1st. And at that point, the public can start checking everything out, and then public comments and recommendations, as well as new proposals, are due by February 1st. And then, I certainly plan to be out in Des Moines the beginning of May, actually May 3rd through the 7th, as those NCST deliberations begin, which, of course, that is what from that develops the updates to the National School Bus Specifications and Procedures Manual, really the best practices Bible for school transportation. So definitely looking forward to that and seeing what new things will come. One of those, we've talked about it, the new committee on non-traditional vehicles or non-school bus vehicles. So we've seen the rise in alternative transportation. A lot of school districts are adding more non-school buses to their fleets, vans, SUVs, sedans, whatnot, to transport students, especially those students who are experiencing homelessness and protected by the federal McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act, some students with disabilities as well. And like what we were talking about at the top, Tony, a lot of this is being driven by the bus driver shortage. So that is a brand new committee, as I mentioned. And there's a great article coming up in October, a little sneak preview by our dear friend, Dr. Linda Bluth, that talks about that committee, that writing committee, and talks a little bit more about how that came about and how she was really the advocate for that and really pushed NCST to create that writing committee. And of course, we're going to be talking about that once again, that topic once again at TSD in November.
Excellent. Well, guys, before we get to this great interview with Ryan and the executive team at Palmer Bus, we got a quick message. Hey guys, what do software, hardware, and safety have in common? One word: TransFinder. At the STN EXPO in Reno, TransFinder won 3 Innovation Choice Awards, voted on by STN EXPO attendees for best software, best hardware, best safety technology. TransFinder's Route Finder plus routing solution and apps, Stop Finder and Wayfinder, are well known in the industry. Not everyone realizes TransFinder provides hardware like card readers, tablets, and mounts. And as for safety, Patrol Finder for schools is TransFinder's latest solution designed to make buses and campuses safer. TransFinder's president and CEO, Antonio Civitella, said the recognition means so much because it's voted on by STN EXPO attendees. Civitella said, "We know a lot is riding on TransFinder because a lot is riding on those yellow buses that travel through our communities. TransFinder must continue to innovate as more is being expected of transportation departments from district leadership as well as parents." Learn more at transfinder.com. That's transfinder.com.
All right, we're back and pleased to be joined today on the School Transportation Nation podcast. The executive team at Palmer Bus Services in Minnesota. A lot of you know we wrote recently this year's 2024 NSTA Contractor of the Year. So we are joined by CEO and co-owner Jenna Fromm, Chief Operating Officer Shane Johnson, and Chief Financial Officer Chris Champlin. Hey, all, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Ryan. We're happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan, for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. So I want to start. I want to kind of go down the line. First of all, to talk about what this win means to the company and to you individually. Really overseeing the company growth, the company financial health, obviously the operations with Shane. We're going to start with you, Jenna. And I know we're going to get into a pretty rich history of the company. You guys are celebrating your 50th year. So congratulations on that as well. But Jenna, starting with you, what does this win mean to you personally? Your sister Holly is a co-owner, Holly Johnson, and then to the company in terms of winning Contractor of the Year?
Thank you for that question, Ryan. And thank you for having us as guests on your podcast. So happy to be here today. Ronald Reagan had a great quote, and he said, "There's no limit to the amount of good you can do if you don't care who gets the credit." I am just incredibly grateful to our team. There are wonderful, hardworking people that really dedicate their time, their talent, mental energy, so many things to making Palmer Bus Service a success. And I truly see this as an award for all of those people that work together towards this achievement. And I'm incredibly grateful to them for all they've done to make it possible.
Excellent. And then Shane, overseeing operations as COO, I'm positive that Jenna and Chris are also interacting with the staff regularly, day in and day out. But really, Shane, this reflects on the team, the drivers, the technicians, the routers, dispatchers, trainers, the folks that you're really overseeing. What's been the reaction of the employees when they heard about this win?
Yeah, when we thanks again to Ryan for having us on today. I just want to say that first. Appreciate it very much. When we got the award that evening, Chris and I were both there. Had no idea that was going to happen or take place. So we were surprised. We were humbled, to say the least. But it was really, really neat when we came back and were able to share the news the following days with our folks here. I think they had the same reaction. And it was fun to see the looks on their faces, their expressions when we shared the news. But again, giving them all the credit because they are the ones that they do all the hard work. They do all the pushing and pulling. And we have just an incredible team behind us, with us, alongside of us here at Palmer Bus Service. Just some good people that every single day they roll their sleeves up. And they enjoy what they do here at Palmer Bus Service. And it was their award. And we made sure that they knew that. So it was fun to share with them.
Excellent. And Chris, I mentioned earlier we're gonna talk with Jenna here in a moment about the incredible growth of the company. And you obviously, you and your team, you're seeing those financials, you're seeing that financial growth, and you're crunching the numbers every day. Want to get your perspective on that. Obviously the operations, as Shane mentioned, those are the people that make this happen every day. They're making it roll. But then, your job is to make sure that the company is healthy. And this is reflective on a lot of that health, isn't it? This award?
Yeah, for sure, Ryan. Again, thanks for having us on today. We really appreciate it. Like Shane said, yeah, it was kind of a shocking news to hear that we got the award, and kind of made me reflect back to when I started with the company back in 2007. And I think there were four of us that were really leading the organization as a whole, and just to see the tremendous growth since 2007 when I started, and all the different people that have gotten added to our team and in every single area of our company. It's just been a wonderful growth opportunity to see the financials grow. And I always knew that there was great potential for the company. And this was kind of the fruition of all those years of hard work and dedication. Again, give all the credit to the team behind us. We wouldn't be here today if it weren't for them, because every single person on that team is doing their part, rowing the boat every single day.
And I'm glad you mentioned when you came on board in 2007, because at that point, and I want to get back to you, Jenna, in terms of the company history, that was really, at a point when a lot of this growth really started happening. I believe around that point was when you and your sister took ownership of the company, or maybe a few years later. But talk a little bit about the company history. I mean, I mentioned it's 50 years old. It was started in 1974, the year I was born, actually. So I'm celebrating my 50th anniversary as well this summer. But talk about your late father, Floyd. He started the company. Your mom, Lois. It wasn't easy. This hasn't been an easy road to hoe. Talk about the history of the company, some of the challenges, and
Yes.
How you guys have really expanded and come through to where you are today.
Thank you, Ryan. It's a great story. I would start with my dad as a little boy growing up in rent-free homes in southwestern Minnesota. One of 7 children. He was the oldest son. At 14 years old, Floyd was sent away from home to neighboring farmers to actually live at their farm, mostly sleep in the barn and work the farm, get up very early, milk cows, go to school, hand-me-down clothes. Very difficult start in life. His money always going home to support his family that was on the home place. Once he graduated, went straight into the Navy and got the opportunity there to work on planes mechanically. Loved that part of his life, was really able to flourish. My dad had 3 pieces of advice. The first piece really makes me think of this time. The first piece is work harder. Someone might be smarter than my dad. Someone might have more money, but they were never going to outwork him. And I think that's a legacy that he really and truly left. My dad taught both my sister, Holly, and I how to work. He later became an employee for the airlines. He and my mom, Lois, had married and moved down to St. Louis. At this point, they had 2 children, Holly and then Leah. Leah had severe cerebral palsy, had gone without oxygen at birth, and lived her life in a wheelchair, and even had what they called a halo on her head because she couldn't hold her head up. There was no way that my mom was going to send her to one of the institutions, so she stayed home, cared for the 2 girls. In 1974, Ken Lenz, brother-in-law, called from Waseca and said, "Hey, Floyd, I know you've always wanted to be in business. There's an opportunity for here, a small town by where I'm at, St. Clair, Minnesota. They're looking to contract out their service." 2 weeks before school started, the Palmer family moved up to Mankato, moved in with my grandparents, and my dad started school in September of 1974. So it was a rough go. I'm not sure how he pulled that together, but he did, probably with that working harder, right? Mm-hmm. I came along in 76, so bicentennial baby. It's all I've known my entire life is the bus business. And then about 2.5 years after me, my sister Amber was born. Once again, sometimes you win the lottery, but maybe in a challenging way. A child with Down syndrome and later diagnosed with autism. So lots of challenges in our home. My dad took his responsibility as a provider very seriously, continued to work harder. Another piece that my dad always said, I said 3 pieces of wisdom. Second one was remember where you came from. Don't forget that. He never forgot that small town, southwestern Minnesota rent-free home that he came from. He never forgot that, always worked very hard. Moving more into Palmer bus service, I think part of what fueled his growth would be his 3rd piece of advice, which is, and I will say it, always, always, always make that call. He lived by that, was very social, knew everybody, would pick up the phone, was not afraid to talk to anybody. So with that start, gradually began to acquire other districts and move forward. To this day, I've never met anyone that worked as hard as my dad did.
It definitely shows. I think your website says that first contract, 8 buses.
Yep.
And now how many buses are in the Palmer bus fleet across? I think it's like 26 or 28 locations statewide in Minnesota.
28 locations. I would say, I'd refer to Shane, I'd say about 700 pieces of equipment, maybe a little bit north of that.
Okay. So obviously, some huge growth there over the 50 years. Talk a little bit about, you mentioned your dad's values and the things he taught you and your sisters. And that trickled down obviously to the company. You guys really hit company values very hard.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about those?
Oh, that is my favorite topic, Ryan. It is absolutely who we are as a company. So our purpose is to serve our communities by safely transporting students. That is what we're all about. It is a great way to maintain focus on what is important and what are we here to do. Service to our communities. How do we do it? Safety is number one. We transport the most precious cargo, period. I don't need to say anything else from there. Integrity, we're honest, have integrity, are ethical in our business. I would say the way to know that is to work with us. You will find that we will do what we say we are going to do every time. Dignity. We treat each employee with dignity, and as an individual, a lot of that probably does come from my roots with 2 sisters with disabilities, right? Everybody is worthy of that. And a piece of my dad's, remember where you came from. Every human being is deserving of that dignity. Then we have help. We're a business family and we help each other. That is where our different locations really come into play. Is folks from Austin can send people to Mankato to help, or to Jackson or Windham or Mountain Lake. And that camaraderie, that sense of being not alone, I think is the lifeblood of Palmer Bus Service. Lastly, communities, a lot of small communities that we serve, a lot of gravel roads. We're responsible and committed to those communities that we serve.
And Shane, overseeing operations, how do you help lead your people and take these values and actually bring them to fruition? Can you talk a little bit about, whether it's training, just the culture? How does that work in everyday work life?
Yeah, it's important. I think we all believe in leading by example. So that's where I start with our core values. I want to make sure that conversations that I'm having, my little board is just up here to my left. And if I'm having a conversation with somebody, or maybe a difficult conversation, I'll look over to my left and remember our core values, right? And how I'm maybe talking to somebody, having that conversation, how it needs to be shaped or formed. So again, leading by example. So again, how we talk to each other, how we react to somebody or to a situation, making sure, again, that falls in line with who we say that we are. So backing all that up intentionally, their core values. So, it's one of those things a lot of companies or businesses have. A mission statement or vision statement, whatever it might be, kind of hanging on the wall, and it's not practice. I can honestly say that our 5 core values are our foundation here at Palmer Bus Service. So it's imperative that I do it first in order for others to do it as well. So we make it very purposeful.
Mm-hmm. And I want to mention as well, the big summer you guys have had, celebrating your 50th anniversary, winning the NSTA Contractor of the Year award, also named a top transportation team by TransFinder. They this is the 3rd year now, and they work with us at our STN EXPO West in Reno, Nevada. But this year, Palmer Bus Service was named honorable mention because it's the first contractor recognized. Really was, I believe, developed as really highlighting school districts, and there's a survey involved that employees basically vote on certain criteria. And something's working because you're your company was highlighted for this. And I'm curious, sticking with you for a moment, Shane, because you're talking about how it starts with you, and obviously with Jenna and Chris as well, and leadership trickles down, right? The good and the bad. Folks see that and they replicate that. But I'm curious in terms of something that we're hearing a lot of here at School Startup. This was an issue last year, and it's looking to be just as bad of an issue this year, is behavior, whether it be students, parents. We know there's a driver shortage, and I want to ask you guys about kind of where you guys are with staffing right now. Everyone's challenged in some way, shape, or form. But we've obviously seen how that shortage, for example, is affecting operations. And whether it be late arriving buses, parents, more so than I can remember, really have been impacted and affected by this. And it's showing in these headlines where we see parents. It used to be parents would get really mad because their kid was getting bullied or something. Now they're confronting, sometimes beating the school bus driver. It's crazy because the bus is late. I'm curious, with these values, what have you seen, Shane? And how do your folks deal with maybe some of these issues that they're now seeing on the road that they maybe never saw before?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's we could probably spend a half hour just on that one question alone, I think. But again, we see the value of just again the safety aspect of cameras. All of our buses, all of our Type 3 vehicles have cameras installed externally and externally for stop arm violations. But I think there used to be a time where cameras, again, this is my opinion, but cameras were necessary to catch negative behavior by students. And again, it's still kind of true today. But I think unfortunately, cameras probably exist even more so now to protect drivers, to protect an employee, because things are done or said on a bus that are said, but maybe don't always line up with what the video shows. And that can go both ways. So we really see the value in having the cameras on there, again, to, if there is some negative behavior going on, hey, we can show the school, hey, here's what's happening with some of the students. And or again, if a driver is doing something inappropriately, it's there. But a lot of times the driver didn't do anything inappropriate or say anything inappropriate. And some students who didn't like the driver because he or she may be, too strict with some rules, band together to, go after the driver. So kind of goes both ways. But again, we see the value of, again, kind of going back to our core values, safety, integrity, dignity, lining up with those things, and the community aspect too, of making sure that, again, our buses are out there. They have the equipment on it to tell a story. And that's, we believe in that.
Gotcha. And then Chris, staying in that same lane in terms of the values, another big challenge that the industry has been dealing with, costs, right? Inflation, a lot of it tied to the supply chain shortages that were tied to COVID, and even, maybe exacerbated the supply chain issues, brought them more to the forefront. How do you and in your team embrace those values when you're looking at the bean counting of it, right? That's kind of the unheralded but extremely important, maybe one of, as vital, if not more vital than the actual service, is making sure that you guys are running as efficient as possible when you're looking at those costs. I'm curious, from your perspective, how do you use those values, those company values, to help you make decisions and then go to Jenna as well as her sister Holly and say, hey, this is what we're seeing right now. This is where we're going to need to make some decisions.
Yeah. No, thanks, Ryan. It's been challenging. Last couple of years, we've seen double-digit increases in our labor rates, our insurance, our parts, cost of equipment. I mean, the list goes on, right? That everybody's really looking for that extra dollar or two here or there. Again, we're just really trying to find efficiencies in everything that we do. And with that, I think in this last few years, we've really invested in the technology side. And, you mentioned TransFinder. Of course, we're partnering with them. We're partnering with Zonar, partnering with Bite Curve, REI, Ingevity. I mean, some really great companies out there that have really helped us from the technology side to identify where we could maybe save a few dollars on, whether it's our routing costs, our idling time on our buses. There's just so many pieces that everything matters, right? There's no one wasted dollar at all out there. And, I tell my folks, in looking at their Bite Curve reports, minutes matter. So we're looking at every single thing that we can to try and save a few dollars. So it has been challenging. And, unfortunately, those double-digit increases oftentimes go right to your bottom line. So we got to try and find a way to, work within that. And we know that districts have very limited budgets, and their funding from the state is pretty limited.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to ask you, because obviously those costs, they end up ultimately being burdened by the school districts. So it's always that push and pull, right, of any vendor, but especially with a school bus contractor, of communicating, hey, these costs are going up and no one wants to pay more. You guys don't want to pay more. Your customers don't want to pay more. I'm curious, and likely your values come into this as well, that communication, that relationship. And I don't know, Jenna, if you want to talk a little bit about that relationship with the customer and just the value of that communication. How do you portray these things to these folks?
Absolutely, Ryan. I welcome that question. We always refer to our school districts as our partners. We're truly in partnership with them. My question is, when we sit down with them, I don't like to say across the table from them. I like to say, let's sit down together at the table and figure out, how can we make this pie bigger? How might we influence this? What are those synergies that we can use together? We've been working with them very often to see if there's staff that could complement. We have paid driver training program. Do they have folks that could be a part of that? Is there even maybe some mechanical training that we can partner with the school district, bring some students in, benefit in those ways, really contributing to our communities, and hopefully in ways where everybody can win? How many of those can you have? Building the relationship throughout the years, making sure that there's some on-site visits to meet with the superintendents when things are going well, right? To have those conversations, to build relationship, so that when there is something more unpleasant, it's not just this cold, hard business deal. It's that let's come together again and talk about how else we can partner and what else we could do. I believe that is key and so important.
And I want to also ask about, I mentioned the driver shortage, school startup. Shane, maybe you can tell us a little bit how school startup. I believe you guys are back at school for the most part across the state. How has school startup been going? We've obviously been seeing headlines from across the nation. And that school bus driver shortage seems to be the root of a lot of the issues. Where are you guys with staffing? What's been the start? How does that look so far?
So we've had a few of our districts have went back already. Probably the majority here in Minnesota, ours included, go back after Labor Day, but we have had some startup already. Those have went pretty smooth so far. Overall, as a company, we are doing very well with our driver situation. We only have a few openings, with probably with type 3 vans and school bus routes, probably around 600 routes or so. And we really only have a handful that would be open if everything started tomorrow. We have a lot of people already in the pipeline that'll be testing for their CDL here within the next couple of weeks as well. So I think we're pretty blessed and grateful for where we are at here today. We have an incredible recruiting team here at Palmer Bus Service. They just do a fantastic job day in, day out, out in our communities, recruiting, connecting with people. And so they do a bang up job, and they put us in a place that, 5 years ago, we weren't, probably like everybody, we were not doing well on that side, and we recognize that. So we made a conscious effort and decision to build a recruiting team. And again, we have some fantastic people that do that. So like I said, I think our startup so far have been very well. I think after Labor Day, when we're at 100%, we're going to be in a good place.
And I'm hearing here, or reading between the lines, you guys were talking so much about company values and culture, and we hear that over and over again. Certainly, folks need to make money. They need to get paid. They need to pay rent, pay mortgage, get food on the table. But over and over again, especially in this industry, we hear the importance of culture that works toward that school bus driver shortage. I'm curious, Chris, in terms of payroll, and I know that you don't manage the payroll directly, but obviously that's under your purview. That's all the costs, the labor costs are among the highest of what Palmer Bus pays for each and every week, month, biweekly, whatever. Curious, we see so much nationwide talking about, minimum wage and that going up. Can you talk a little bit about school bus wages, school bus driver wages? Even, we have shortages in the facilities as well with technicians and everywhere else. Can you talk a little bit about, at least from your perspective, and what you're seeing in Minnesota, how much that is driving the conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. The wage piece is just, I don't think we ever see anything ever go down, right? It's constantly going up, and really trying to balance, again, paying that employee fairly for what they're doing for us every single day, because without those folks, we wouldn't be here at all. So it's really working within the district contract, trying to get enough from the district so we can just pass those dollars on to those drivers. But it is challenging. Like I mentioned before, we've seen double-digit increases in labor costs, yet most of our school districts are getting 2 to 3% from the state of Minnesota. So those are the conversations we're having with our districts, and it's not us just trying to get a few extra dollars for the bottom line. It's truly trying to reward the people that are part of your community, to give them the money they need to help take care of those expenses at home, like you described, Ryan.
Mm-hmm. And also here we are, less than 2 months out from our TSD conference in Frisco, Texas, our transporting students with disabilities and special needs. And kind of to end this conversation, Jenna and Shane, I think you can speak to this as well, because of the family history, family members with disabilities and special needs. Curious, Palmer Bus, what you guys are doing for your districts in transporting students with disabilities. We've been seeing, I think, over the last many school years, it seems that the numbers of students with IEPs continue to increase at most school districts nationwide. In terms of autism, your sister, Jenna, has that condition. And we're seeing those rates, the prevalence, the diagnoses increase. I think it's now 1 in 36 children. Mm-hmm. And I think that there's the attention paid to it, and the medical resources that are identifying, I think, probably more cases than we knew of before. But I'm curious, your father also, he was very forthright, and he had ADHD and dyslexia. So certainly it's an issue dear to your family's heart. Yes. So I'm just curious, what's your perspective on transporting these kiddos? And maybe Shane, you can also, after Jenna, give a little bit insights on how many students you are providing service for and what that looks like in your operations.
Ryan, I can tell you at my house, the fact that my mom was able to get her 2 children on a bus and take them to an environment where another adult could care for them for a few hours a day, work with them, help them with their skills. And she had a few moments to breathe during that time was priceless. The importance of getting kids out in the community, interacting with peers, really being part of the classroom, part of society, right? I think it's so important. And it's definitely part of our mission that I want every child to have that chance and provide that service to every family so that they're able to be ready and care for their children once they come home again.
Excellent. And Shane, can you give us some stats maybe on what you, and I know that a lot of your school districts haven't gone back, but you're probably starting to see some early data come in from the districts on what to expect for this school year.
Yeah, Ryan, and you're correct in that every year we see our special needs transportation numbers go up across the board at all of our districts. So it is something that is growing again throughout Minnesota. My guess would be the country as well. We transport around just south of 39,000 students daily at Palmer Bus Service throughout our 28 locations. So, I would say I don't have the exact number, but I'm going to guess we're probably in that 10 to 15% range of transporting special needs students. So it's a significant number. We run a lot of type A yellow buses. We run just south of 200 type 3 vehicles as well, where we can have anywhere from 1 student on the van, to maybe 3 or 4, depending on the needs of the student on there. So again, something that we do are seeing just, again, an increase. Something that we're very purposeful about is making sure that our folks are getting that specific training as well. And so what we do is we reach out to our districts. We ask them to please come in-house, and we'll hold some driver meetings with our special ed drivers and our aides. And we ask the school to please help us with the training. I mean, they're more the experts. We don't expect our people to be experts in special needs, but we want to be able to provide the best situation that we can in that. So whether it be the driver or the aid. So that's something that we're very purposeful about.
Yeah, and Chris, obviously, we know that transporting students with disabilities that's the most expensive for the most part of operations. Just the latest cost that you and your team are trying to wrap your head around, and obviously trying to kind of milk that rock, right? Try to keep that service level where it needs to be and exceeding that service level, because we see, again, with the demands of parents now, where a lot of times they are throwing out, incorrect information, trying to cite IDEA. So it's really, behooves Shane and his team to really stay on top of that. He said that, it's hard to be an expert at all this stuff, but then you have to communicate, you have to look at those costs, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think we do a great job with, like Shane said, with the training piece and putting drivers in the right situation with the appropriate vehicle that makes sense for the type of transportation they're providing. And as you know, the cost of equipment, whether it's a type A bus and from our manufacturers, it's gotten quite expensive and hard to find even certain pieces of equipment. So it is, again, being as super efficient as we can with each vehicle we have out there. And trying to allocate those costs to, fairly to the districts and in a way that they can maximize whatever funding source that they can get on their end, so that hopefully the end of the day net cost to them is reasonable within their budget.
Well, in 50 years, like I said at the top, Palmer Bus Services has come a long, long way, and it seems like the trajectory is just, onward and upward. So again, congratulations on the 50th anniversary this year. Congratulations, NSTA Contractor of the Year for 2024, and also a top team honorable mention. So again, Jenna, Shane, and Chris, really appreciate you taking some time out of your very busy day to speak with us today.
Thank you, Ryan. We so appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ryan. Appreciate it.
Hey, I want to extend a special thank you to the Palmer Bus team of Jenna, Shane, and Chris. Really enjoyed the conversation with Mr. Ryan Gray, and always appreciate Ryan's editorial insights with today's headlines. Also appreciate our sponsors, TransFinder and IC Bus. Make sure you let them know you heard about them on the STN podcast and how much you enjoyed today's interview and the headlines you heard on the episode. Also remember, STNonline.com for all the latest news and analysis on school transportation industry. Go check out the latest issue, August issue. September's coming up soon as well. You can go to the website, click on the magazine tab, see all the latest digital editions we've got in store for you. And if you haven't signed up yet for the TSD conference in Frisco, Texas on November 7th through the 12th, don't wait any longer. It is the ultimate in special needs training. You guys have to experience it for yourselves. Register today to secure our early bird rate, $100 off. Go lock it in, tsdconference.com. Guys, don't forget, you can subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to pods for the latest and greatest in school transportation. Every week, we've got an episode for you of the School Transportation Nation. Right on your phone, tablet, listen in your radio while you're walking the dog, out for a run, mowing the lawn. It's a great time to listen to the podcast. Ryan and I are so happy you are here, as well as podcast producer Claudia. Thank you so much, Nation. We love you. We'll see you next week.